Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video of the Disney Plus series Loki. And today I'm going to be ranking all 6 of the episodes like I did with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, like we did with WandaVision. So let's just get right into this ranking. Coming in at last place, number 6, the worst episode of Loki, I'm pretty sure we can all agree, was episode 3. While this episode did portray an okay dynamic between Sylvie and Loki, this really was just summed up in one word: filler. Well, 2 words: unnecessary filler. This episode came off of one of the better episodes in the show, and then it just has Loki and Sylvie running around this barren wasteland, which was a very prominent part in the trailer. Like, the scene from Momentous 1 from the trailer is actually my background on this laptop. But everyone saw all these things of Loki and Sylvie sitting under the tree, like, of Lamentus, and we're like, oh, is that Black Widow? And even though it wasn't Black Widow, like, it still looked cool. Like, Lamentus, this purple planet was the part that I was like, alright, this is what I want to see in the show. But then we get into the episode. It's really just a not good episode. The action is just very weird and not well choreographed. And then this episode doesn't do much to push the story forward. At the beginning of the episode, they're trapped on the planet, and at the end of the episode, they're trapped on the planet. And then the cliffhanger at the end of episode 3 wasn't really a good cliffhanger, and this episode really wasn't good, and I'm pretty sure this episode was really just there so the creator can confirm that Loki was bi. Other than that, this episode was the worst episode of Loki. Coming in at number 5 is episode 5, Journey into Mystery. Now, this episode, it is better than episode 3. And it's not a bad episode like episode 3 was. Like, this one just happened to get scored lower. But the adventure with all the other Lokis, I feel like it was propped up way too much in trailers and even at the end of the previous episode's cliffhanger, because you just have these Lokis that really do not have a bunch of screen time. President Loki, he's only on the screen for like a minute or 2. But this episode, like, it was a shock. Like, everyone thought Loki died in the previous episode. But this episode, it was kind of like the first one, where, like, at the beginning, they're trapped on it. At the end, they know how to get out, but they're still trapped on it because they want to save that for next episode. The other Lokis, they were an interesting addition, but they just really didn't do much with them, sadly. And I was excited. I thought this was going to be a whole episode with the other Lokis. But no, this one kind of felt like a little bit more filler, just to, keep it for have one more episode so they can cliffhang you for the finale. Glorious Purpose is better than episode 3, but it's not too good of an episode. Coming in at number 4 is episode 1 of Glorious Purpose. Now, this, pilot was probably the best pilot of the Marvel shows, but, like, this episode I actually really did like how the majority of it was just like Loki kind of speed running his character growth all the way to Ragnarok. And honestly, in this first episode, he's better than how he was at the end of Ragnarok. Like, this episode kind of takes like a therapy vibe between Loki and Mobius, and I really like that, how Mobius is really like the only person in the MCU that we've seen really like break Loki, except for Thanos, of course. But Mobius really like delves deep into like the psyche of Loki, like what makes him tick, why does he do what he does, and he actually gets Loki to admit that this episode is like just like almost an hour of just personal growth for Loki. And I'm actually surprised it was this early in the season. Like, I expected all Loki to have this growth like in like the later episodes, but we got it all in the first episode, which is really good. It is a nice episode, but outside of the Loki stuff, like if you're rewatching it back, this episode really is just kind of a little bit too slow, a little bit too uneventful. But when the show was coming out week by week, I feel like that's when this episode was really at its strong point. So I feel like this episode benefits more when you're watching the show on a week by week basis instead of watching it all at once. The episode was great, but like I said, just kind of isn't enough to compare against the other episodes that are ranked above this one. Kicking off the top 3 list is episode 6, For All Time Always. Now, this episode is the finale of the series. It actually didn't come out not too long ago, only about 6 or 7 days ago. And this was a pretty good finale. I feel like this may have been the best finale of all the shows, just for the sole fact that this is really the only finale of the 3 MCU TV shows so far that have done the most to push the MCU forward after Endgame, after Far From Home. Like, at the end of WandaVision, that's set, I'm pretty sure that's set before Far From Home, and, we knew she was going to be in Doctor Strange too, so it didn't say much. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, everyone ends where they began. Falcon is Captain America. Bucky is learning to grow out of his Winter Soldier past. But this episode really, set off, so much for Phase 4. It potentially introduced the next huge, big, bad Thanos-level villain for the MCU with Kang and all his variants. This episode really is our only official look at the creation of the upcoming multiverse, and this episode, it really just pushed the MCU into new concepts. Right now the MCU is at the spot where they can do the most stuff right now. All the stuff with Sylvie, though, I don't know, I kind of wasn't vibing with her character, her betrayal. I mean, it was kind of obvious, but even though it was kind of obvious, I still think it came out of nowhere just because I don't think we really got that development with Sylvie and Loki that the showrunners really expected us to get at that point. So yeah, for me personally, I didn't really mess with the Sylvie betrayal and stuff all that much. Kang, or not Kang, but not really Kang, Immortus, I'm pretty sure is what this variant was called, Jonathan Majors, he really did a fantastic role. You could tell he really loves the role, and I think he was really the star of the episode. But yeah, this finale, it was really good. Even though it really wasn't much action, and the action that was there was kind of bad because the show didn't have good choreography, this show really did a good job of making exposition good to listen to. It's interesting, and it really just gets you excited for what's to come in the MCU. At the number 2 slot, we have episode 4, The Nexus Event. I really do feel like this was one of the only other episodes that really gave us so much to chew on that it really, I didn't even, feel dreading the wait for the next episode. This episode really did give us so much, story growth between all the characters, setting up the finale, and it was really just an all-around good episode. You have Loki and Mobius continuing their therapy session, which was some of the best stuff of the first episode. Then you have him getting sent to this little time prison, which only gives us more growth. Still, the stuff with Sylvie, wasn't that interesting, but it was still better because this episode was just really good. You have Mobius starting to doubt himself in the TVA, make believe oh shoot, what if I really am a variant? That'd be crazy. Wow. And we have all the stuff going on with Ravonna and Sylvie. This episode really showed us that Ravonna is not a nice lady. She is evil. She obviously remembered what Sylvie's Nexus event was, but she didn't want to tell her just to make that sting all the worse. So that was a really good acting by her. And then this episode, the cliffhanger, that was a shocking end. Where you literally just have Loki and Mobius get pruned. Mobius getting pruned is probably, I think Mobius getting pruned is sadder than Vision and Wanda's kids going away, I'm being honest. And then you have Loki getting pruned. That actually surprised me because I was well shoot, they just killed our Loki, and I guess Sylvie's gonna be the main character. So that was a twist that actually got me. Episode 4, I feel like this and the next episode on the list is really the best ones because these episodes really feel like they're in the same genre of kind of mystery, thriller, buddy cop action, which is really what I feel like the show should have stayed as. But this episode was really great, and that's why it's at number 2. Coming in at number 1, the very best episode for Loki we all saw coming was episode 2. Now this episode, I'm just flat out saying the reason why this is the best is because this is the genre that the show should have been. Buddy cop, mystery, thriller. I feel like this whole dynamic with Mobius and Loki going to invest different crime scenes to find their time criminal was really the best. This episode really hit so good, and it was so well shot. The end with the rock star, it was so, the music just swells as you see them all walking into the rain, into this neon-lit backdrop and this disaster. That was some cool stuff. That's some of the most cool visuals I've seen in a while. Then you have the reveal that the variant they're hunting is Sylvie. Imagine, how different the show would have been if Loki didn't go with Sylvie, and you have him and Mobius teaming up to uncover this mystery, and then they learned that the TVA was variants, and then they all team. I feel like that would have been better and maybe given us the development with Loki and Sylvie that they really needed to get that whole she betrayed him moment. But this episode, Even in the beginning, like you have Loki still trying to trick Mobius, like trying to cut a deal with the variant, and this whole investigative like thriller, like it's such a basic premise. Like they have this mystery, they have people getting killed, there's a big scheme at play, they're gonna uncover it. But the fact that they could have done so much with like this tiny, whiny stuff, and even then still managed to nail a pretty solid story that was interesting and engaging. Like this episode was really, I think this is the best episode out of any of the Marvel television that we've seen so far. And if each of the episodes were like this quality, this might be one of my favorite shows of all time because that second episode was truly amazing and so good. Like this episode, honestly surprising how good because. So, I mean, like, I like Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I wasn't down on board with WandaVision, but they all had good moments. But I feel like this really just elevated the Marvel television shows to a quality that's just like, wow. Like, if they can do this, man, all their episodes need to be like this. Well, guys, that was my ranking of every single Loki episode. Let me know how I did down in the comments below. And comment down what was your favorite episodes and how you would rank these. As always, leave a like if you liked the video, or if you just disagree, agree, whatever. Just leave a like if you want to engage with the video. As always, make sure to check the playlist down below for all of our Loki content, and check Sterling's channel down in the link below. And I'll see you guys with the next vid.